Another edition of Beat the Closing Number presented by TheLines.com. I'm Eli Hershkovich, joined as always by Justin Perri. You can follow him on X at JustinPerri8 of Shot Quality Bets and Hoops HQ, doing college basketball projections and betting analysis at both of those respective sites. Justin, how we doing? It is kind of conference tournament week, but the major conferences get underway next week. We'll be talking about the Missouri Valley later on in the show. Before that, we have a few major conference games, single game action, one in the SEC, a big one, potential number one overall seed in the tournament on the line between Florida, Alabama. Then we have a couple Big East matchups, but how's handicapping? How's life ahead of the craziness over the next month or so?
Handicapping's going okay, I'd say. Profitable over the last 5.5 weeks by a hair or two, so cannot complain. I do consider February to be one of the tougher months. It gets tougher and tougher as we gather new data because the market, the books, the gambling community at large becomes more correct, and you want them to be more incorrect so you have a better chance to be more correct by comparison, right? So as everyone gets smarter, it's harder to beat everyone. And you are kind of playing against everyone with the way that data is exchanged and edges are ground to zero and all that fun stuff. But again, not losing money in February is a great sign because I usually do. And I still come out ahead. But now I don't have to worry about that. I had a really strong December, okay January, decent February. Now hopefully finishing strong in March. Did have a pretty brutal Northwestern plus 3.5 on Monday night. And that one hurt to see slip through my fingers. But that's kind of how I feel like a lot of my losses have been. I was joking with a friend. I was like, if I could not have the tragic losses happen, I think I'd probably be winning over 60% this year. And that's not even a joke. So that's great. I'm having a great season. I'm really excited. We have some really great stuff going on. But yeah, coming off a bad night, hoping to get a little bounce back, still feeling good. The nice thing right now, though, is I'm so far ahead on my originating that losing a day, losing 2 days in a row, the stuff from the next day is already in. I'm not going to get impacted by any emotional process because I don't even have to think about what I have tomorrow. Like everything's locked and ready to go.
Get ready till we lose an hour of sleep. Then we'll see how you're feeling. I believe that
I don't get hours of sleep to begin with. I can't lose what I don't have in March. But yes, I know it's not pleasant for us college basketball inclined folk.
that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I've been more selective this year, just handicapping wise. I've only played about 75, 80 games, which is a little less than I had in maybe previous years. Yeah, I've been much more selective. I've had my fair share of bad beats, just like you had. But I will say, edgewise for us over the weekend, we crushed it on a bunch of our bets. Xavier stands out.
Nice. Yep.
I was dead wrong about the number for Illinois, Michigan, but the handicap was great because Illinois blew out the Wolverines in the second half. They shot all over them. We finally saw Michigan get blown out after a bunch of close wins, just a strand of them consecutively. So that was nice to see, but shout out to us. Pat on the back for us for our handicapping over the weekend. We'll see if we can keep it going, Justin. Tipping things off with Alabama and Florida. This was that number one seed conversation that I alluded to earlier. First off, point spread, opening line on FanDuel, Alabama -3.5, -104, total of 176.5. The number one seed odds per Fanatic Sportsbook. Remember to price shop the best odds over at thelines.com. Tennessee, just looking at this thing holistically, to get that fourth number one seed with the first three being Auburn, Duke, Houston. Tennessee -110 after beating Alabama over the weekend. Florida +120. Alabama +225. So a huge swing game potentially, especially if Tennessee were to lose to Ole Miss on Wednesday afternoon, or Wednesday night, I should say. We're recording on Tuesday afternoon. Handicap-wise for you, is this a game you're looking to bet, home tax? Another spot where this is coming into play, where KenPom and the market about 2 points off. Any edge for you here, Justin?
Tough to get a real edge on a game like this, top of the board. Both teams ranked in the top 8, both KenPom and shot quality. So you're not fooling anybody. These are two of the best teams in the nation. Everyone's had this one on their calendar marked down. I mean, a random Wednesday night in March, and you just get a beautiful matchup between two of the most fun teams in the best conference in the country. This is arguably a Final Four game, and it's almost disappointing that it is so far set into the season that they might not have the initiatives to really be out there giving it their all, right? We do know that much of what's going on here in the standings are look pretty good, right? Florida 12 wins and Alabama 12 wins. So yeah, there's some seeding, but both teams are in. SEC title at the end of the year for the tournament is, what? I don't think anyone needs that to get in. Anyone who's winning it, it's not really. I mean, maybe we see that type of run, and sometimes that happens because the other teams don't care to really play it because they have their sights set on bigger things, and winning an SEC tournament isn't as big of a deal as honestly winning the round robin in the regular season, which proves your true dominance more than single elimination is ever going to anyone who truly understands the way these things work. So win the regular season, play for March Madness has a lot of validity to every single team that plays it that way, in my opinion. So I don't know. It's really hard to evaluate some of these things and evaluate if there's motivation for either team. I would imagine playing at home against Florida with the back and forth that's been going on in this conference. They're playing this game. This is you can't really sit there and try to pick it apart. I'm not going to. That wouldn't be a part of my handicap or not. I think for me, it's still played pretty well. KenPom going to sit there around 100 and that's a lot of points. Close to 170 points here. I think that's probably pretty correct. 172, 173. It's creeping up to 177, 180. Man, that's probably where I start to become too maybe old school in my thinking, and I get a little worried because I'm like, you should take the under. But
to your point,
I'm not gonna. That's where I would mathematically, it's where I lean. But I think you got to trust the market. I do think. I mean, you can just bet Duke all season and win money. It's kind of isn't this the same vein? You can't just bet Alabama, Florida to go over and expect them to score go 95-95. I really think that maybe the right play isn't the minus 110. Maybe it's going up to that 192.5 line. Right.
Yeah.
And even if you're not getting maybe the expected value by, the market weight isn't right, but that's with a bell curve evaluation. Maybe you just need to realize that the distribution is shifted such that the balance meets at the 177, but the actual way it's scaled should be that there's actually a big chance of it going well past and a big chance of it going well under. Maybe you should play under 165 and over 190 or 195 and expect
a smaller bet.
Right. But or an inverse middle at plus 200 on either side and expect the market to just be reflective of the midpoint, and it actually from things that are very far away. Not that it's always going to come in at 177 a million times, but that it's going to come in at 197, 197, 197, 157, 157, 157. And in essence, yes, it's a 177 point distribution on average, but you could get either one of those. There's just so much variability here. If they could lock this down and everyone wants to win, it's, the last waffle before Waffle House closes for the night, which doesn't happen. People are going to fight. The defense could get tight, and you could get a game like that at the end of the season where we see possessions start to get fought for. But yeah, I like my dual alt theory. Maybe I'll place a bet at plus 200 on either side.
I kind of like your alt under look, and there are a couple reasons why. So we touched on the antithetical over the weekend, ahead of the weekend, with Illinois, Texas A&M, Mississippi State. Three teams that were underperforming with their net three-point percentage, so their three-point efficiency versus the opponent. Florida has been outperforming their net three-point efficiency over the last month by a mile, shooting over 40%. Now, you could argue they're a good three-point shooting team. We saw it over the weekend, Walter Clayton Jr. A lot of these guys are very, very efficient when you give them open looks, which you'll see per shot quality. The opposition shooting around 33%. So no, that's not 30%, but that's still a 7 percentage point differential when you look
Yeah.
at net 3-point percentage. And then on the flip side, or I guess conversely, shot quality, we've touched on this with teams underperforming down the stretch. Maybe a team like Michigan that before the Illinois loss was up by double figures a few possessions. The final score looks a little bit closer than it was for most of the game, like the Oregon game, for instance,
Right.
in mid-February or so. Shot quality had Florida over Texas A&M as a 12-point win. Florida wins by 19. Now, that may not seem like much just because, okay, Florida wins the game by double figures, but Texas A&M blew at least, I don't know if you're watching the final 2 minutes, 3 minutes. The only reason I was, Justin, was because I had a second half bet on Texas A&M. But they blew so many layups down the stretch, whether it was Zurich Phelps or Payne at the rim. This game probably is more
They
so
left
in that
6
range.
points at the rim per shot quality.
Yeah. So I could definitely see this being a spot where Alabama comes off of the Tennessee loss where they were up for much of that second half. They lose on the walk-off Meshack 3. You're pissed coming back home. You're now third in the conversation for that final number 1 seed behind Tennessee and Florida. And Florida underperforms on the road. Now, the one caveat to that is, well, Alabama hasn't shot well from 3 at home, shooting 32.2% from deep in Tuscaloosa versus 39% on the road this season. You could argue the opposition they faced in some of those home games could play a role, but that's pretty drastic. So I don't really know what to make of that, to be honest. But situationally, this is where I could see Florida underperforming the market's expectation. And quite frankly, we're seeing the market pricing this one correctly if my intuition is correct there.
I agree with you. You know, I kind of do like the Alabama side a bit. If you're looking to, if you're like, oh well, I have to play a money line, I have to play a side. I do think it's Alabama. I think you can feel pretty good about them getting it done at home. Florida, again, they present the potential to win this game on their shot making. That's what the line is indicative of. They could just beat them. They could just have that type of day. And that there's such a decent chance at it that, and then also on the other side of the ball, they're going to play decent defense, that there's a realistic shot. There's a realistic shot. So yeah, you know, it's probably like 60% or so, maybe 58% for me, Alabama. Spread very likely going to balloon up at the end. I would be shocked to see this thing finish tight. It comes down to like those last second prayer shots going in to cover something like this, in my opinion. You're going to need Florida to have the ball down 5 and take that 3 and hit it, or go in for the layup with no defense to push it. And that's just not a bet I want. I want the other side. I want the home team that's going to want to hit every single free throw to put it out of the full possession reach. 3 at the end of the day is a key number. It is. It means you can't win on one shot. Sure, a shot and a foul. Okay. But like you have to then hit a 3 through a foul, which is hard to do. Again, I really like that number for a home team in a big game. 3 is pretty nice there. I expect it to have probably more value in the long run than the money line. I don't want to pay that price. I don't. And the opposite holds true as well. I probably could see like that Florida +3 doesn't have a lot of value to me. I want the money line on Florida. Right. I want money line on Florida. I want spread on Alabama. And if we have to come back here and it is Florida by 2, and you guys want to yell at me, that's fine. That's fine.
Alabama by 2.
Sure. Sorry. My bad. Long day. But again, we've done. It's been a good season. I think there's reason to believe this type of stuff is legitimate because again, it's just the way these late game scenarios unfold. And like, yes, on average, is KenPom going to be correct? And are we going to remember the times where the number gets absolutely nailed and we're like, wait, Vegas knows? It doesn't. No, Vegas does not know. Vegas does not know. It's like I saw a tweet. It's all survivorship bias. I saw a tweet today saying, do ACLs do anything good or do they just break? As though every single cut and jump that every human has ever made laterally in the entire existence of our species wasn't built off of an ACL. It's just how the brain works. We do not remember the success. We remember when
Yeah.
things break down. So don't be like that. Survivorship bias will kill you in betting. Recency bias will kill you.
Well, that's kind of a microcosm of society, right? If
it is. Oh, it
deep.
totally is. It totally is. I mean, like we could go so far. I mean, since it's sensationalism at its finest, right? You have to be very weary of it. It happens in the sports markets. I mean, you could argue that the AP poll in college basketball is its own microcosm of sensationalism and recency bias, and survivorship bias, because it gives winning a game too much like value when winning by 1 and losing by 1 are actually separated by 2 points. The AP poll will have you believe that it changes the entire destiny of a team.
Yeah.
There's my rant.
Well, no, it's fair because, and this isn't a knock on the novice bettor. We want to help you. Hopefully you enjoy the podcast. Hopefully you learn something. But there are novice college basketball bettors out there that look at the AP poll and say, okay, Florida is number 5. Alabama is number 7. Why is Florida a dog? Well, we're giving you every single reason why that's the case. And it may not come to fruition. To Justin's point, maybe Florida wins the game outright. If you're betting on this game, this is why I don't want a piece of it. Before we move on, you're betting on shot variance.
Of course. Well, come on. What else do we do? Basketball is a game of shot variance. You're going to bet on basketball. You're going to bet on shot variance.
Yeah, but especially with Alabama.
Sure. Alabama for 4 straight years has had their average 3-point attempt rate over 46.5%. Like, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I saw someone be like, what do you mean Maryland's going to be a 6? They're ranked so-and-so. Stop it. Like, again, it just doesn't, it's really, again, I understand.
People don't get it, man.
It is truly the signifier, I think, of crossing over between, and again, I hope no one takes offense to it in the comments, but it's the signifier between crossing over that line of just the viewing to the understanding of the actual performance of the teams, which again, I think the committee, to their credit, does a better job than the casual fan does, which is why the casual fan gets sometimes confused with a seeding, because, and I like to think I follow all the sharpest bracketologists in the space that probably do a better job than the committee on aggregate. And again, they use record-based metrics for selecting, and they use predictive-based metrics for seeding, right? So that balance of what they do at the top to determine who's actually the best and deserves the 1 versus the 2, this region versus that region, 3 versus 4, versus who gets in on the final cut, who gets those bids. It's not ubiquitous. And, it's like there's so much that goes on here. It's not easy to understand by any means, but it certainly is deeper than win-loss record. And that's kind of, all the AP is. It's really just what's your recent win streak? How many games have you won of your last X games? If you lose 3 out of your last 4, you're going to need to re-win 6 of your last 7 before anyone really starts to consider you, unless maybe you're in the SEC, and that's a whole nother conversation. But welcome to college basketball in the big year 2025.
I'm not sure if any of our listeners and viewers signed up to get Justin's TED Talk today, but he is wearing a suit jacket, which makes him look like he is giving a TED Talk.
I'm going to have to clip this one big time, Eli. That's all I'm going to say. You're going to see clips from this one raining down from above for all of March.
Absolutely. Last tidbit on this game before we move on to a couple Big East matchups and then handicap the Missouri Valley Conference. Will Richard, 45% from 3 over the last month. Thomas Houck, 41. Elijah Martin, nearly 45, so right below Richard at 44.8%. Clayton at 37.5%. Florida's a good shot-making team. If you want to bet the money line, fine, but they're going to dip. You're going to see some variance. And I thought we were going to get it against Georgia last week, even though they were down by 20, 15, 10 for much of that game. We didn't get it because Clayton went off. And so did Richard. Good. I wouldn't be shocked if Bama covers, total goes under. But I'm probably not going to bet it.
No, I'm not either. Maybe my alt thing. That's about it. Probably small if I do it. Small for me. Which if you don't know, I'm high volume. Oh, that's what I meant. You're like, yeah, I'm up to 80 bets this year, bro. I have like 500 bets since January 25th or something. So that's just pregame. That does not even include live bets. So
yeah, we got differing opinions. And we have different handicapping strategies.
Right. And like, again, I play very much like I'm just going to trust that I can win in the out long term. I don't need to pick my spots. And I'm going to just trust that I can do it, essentially just trust the numbers, eyes closed, spray. And it's not spraying and praying. It's spraying and paying.
Volume.
Right. It's spraying and paying. So it works. So again, it's a very different approach. I think this is probably not somewhere where I have the edge. I'll play small, like play around. This is something where I think maybe you can try to uncover something that you could build out to understand games like this in this very public, high liquidity, Power 5 type game, end of season, well modeled thing. Like, there's got to be, it's not perfect. There's got to be something in there where routinely you can catch them getting it wrong in terms of how they offer these games. And my guess is that they give it too much credit in the middle, that their standard deviations are too wide, and that more likely than not, you have a very good chance of getting out to the liminal games where one team blows the other out, where, Alabama for some reason scores 60 points and Florida scores 90. What does minus 30 look like for Florida today? That's definitely in the cards and probably very plus EV. I'm not modeling it, so I don't know. But I would imagine that those are the crevices where you're going to beat the books in these games, not getting it right at the minus 3.5, 177.5.
Let's keep it moving, Justin, with the Big East. Xavier at Butler and DePaul at Providence. A play for you in each KenPom. First off, Xavier -1 coming off of the big win. And we handicapped that one on Saturday's show. Got that one spot on. Spread in their first meeting between Xavier Butler was Xavier -7.5. They won by 13. So not really much of an adjustment, maybe a little bit of a market edge to Butler just in terms of adjusting for the way Butler has been playing down the stretch, although they didn't cover as around 6-point dogs at Villanova over the weekend. Xavier now on the right side of the bubble. With that Creighton win, they've won 5 in a row. Butler, by the way, despite being under 500 on the season, 349th in KenPom's luck rating. Shot quality, as you well know, says the Bulldogs are due for a couple more wins too. Should have been a shot quality win, or was a shot quality win against St. John's despite losing the game by 6. They did cover the closing number of 6.5. And then shot quality had it as a toss-up against Villanova despite losing the game by 10 points. Butler this season, 7 losses by 2 possessions or fewer. And like I mentioned, that Xavier matchup maybe a little bit closer than what the final score of a 13-point margin showed for that game. Pierre Brooks and this Bulldogs offense ranks in the 70th percentile or better in isolation and pick and roll efficiency. And those are both areas where the Musketeers defense can be had. I touched on that heading into the Creighton matchup, even though it didn't matter. Xavier's ball screen coverage with Fremantle is a pretty big liability when you get them in the half court and you're not rushing your shot. You're not down by 10 points or so in the game. I kind of like Butler, especially if this line gets taxed even more, with it being maybe a must-win spot for Xavier to stay on the right side of the bubble. But I know you're looking the other way.
I'm definitely, the numbers point the other way is what I'll say to you, Eli. Definitely value stays.
shot quality kind of likes Butler overall.
Shot quality likes Butler, but we love Xavier. We just love Xavier. We have them currently on a 5-game streak, only expected to lose one of the only one game expected to be lost in the last 6 weeks, and that was on the road at Villanova. They've only underperformed a few games. They definitely, they underperform on the road. That's what they do. They underperform on the road. So, and I don't know if this is a must-win. I will say that. I think they are out of must-win scenario. They just clobbered one of the only other true tournament teams in the conference, which, well, I don't even, goodness, Big East's not doing great this year. But it's not. But this is
Yeah,
Xavier
of the
winning.
tournament teams in the conference.
Sure. A big win over Creighton. Expected to be, though, a 2-point win. So I do see this as a great spot for them to run into some trouble. I think they're another team that, if they're going to lose this game, they're going to lose this game by 8 to 10 points. And again, you're seeing a line that shows their potential to go on the road and get this done by 6 to 8 points. But they have an equal potential to lose by that much too. So I do see this as an outside of a full possession game. Obviously you don't get good value theoretically, like leaving the minus 110, like you lose EV is how people fight against it. But at the other end, like if you can win at the better correlated rate to the price you're getting, then it is technically better EV. So I think there is a good shot here to take Butler minus 3.5, minus 4.5, 5.5, 6.5, all in that range. I expect them to get it done like that if they get it done. But there's a really good chance Xavier does it too. And that's also sitting there at Xavier minus 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, because Butler's not going to go down easy. And maybe they'll hit that final shot at the buzzer, but I doubt it, because maybe they would literally, like, here's the thing, it has to go down when the buzzer hits, right? Because if it goes in with 3 seconds and it's 5, you're going to foul again. You're just
Anthony Leal, man. All I have to say is Anthony Leal.
It is so tough to finish a game at one possession in the current environment of basketball, because you have to hit a shot as the underdog within the last second and a half so that an inbound can end the clock. And even then, it's borderline, it can happen because the inbound's tough too. So I don't know. I definitely think this is one of those games that is going to be as a polarized result. It is not, again, another good spot to beat the books by exploring why they land on this line through the distribution of their probabilities and whether or not they are properly modeled in the alternates. I don't think so. If I had 1,000,001 days and a team of people, I would be studying alternate pricing. I think it's pretty bad. So, but I do all right on the standard stuff. And you want to know what? They don't close your accounts down nearly as quickly on the standard stuff. So what am I going to do? If I go bet alts and I beat them in a week and a half, they're not going to let me play anymore. And they barely.
You're going to need some parlays to clean out. Yeah.
But here's the thing. I can't do another TED Talk.
Yeah, no more TED Talks.
No, we're good.
We're
good.
Obligation of one TED Talk per episode.
It's annoying, Eli. It's just annoying because I wish they would. I would love it. It'd be fun, but they're smart to not let me, I guess. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, let's see how smart they are when they give you a line for another Big East game. DePaul at Providence before we get to the Mo Valley Conference tournament, better known, maybe not better known, but still known as Arch Madness. DePaul is a 7-point dog in this matchup. No Benson, still for the Blue Demons. No Skoman, still for the Blue Demons. I have no interest in the Blue Demons. I have no interest in betting a game involving my alma mater. I don't think I've done it in a few years. We touched on, thank you. We've touched on, is it worth betting some of these late season games? Not that you may or may not have an edge. Just for me personally, I don't have an edge. Not a game I'm really interested or feel like I have to bet, should bet. But what say you here, Justin? Where's your edge?
unfortunately, this is exactly where shot quality gets these games right. Where we have been high on DePaul all season. It hasn't really won us a lot of money. If anything, we've all been like, why are we high on DePaul? Uh,
Well, I'll tell you why. You look at their
Tell me.
3-point differential in conference play, 8%, over
Right?
8%.
Yeah.
Net 3-point and negative 8%, 8.1% to be exact.
Right? That's tough.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna look at that and be like, is that sustainable? I don't know. I don't know. This is exactly where I think, though, and again, this is a little bit different from just modeling. It starts to get into a little bit of handicapping, which I do plenty of, but I don't bet as much of. I bet my models. I mean, I've been very clear about that all season, I think, and all the people who bet my stuff know they're betting my models because I don't want to have to think. I do some. I do. I practice. You kind of have to turn on the handicapping. I think in March if you don't want to rebuild your models and retune things and get back into like your non-conference stuff, which I do and
Right.
takes a lot of gosh dang time. But no, I think for the handicap now in this game specifically, there's something to be said for or not these types of games, I guess. There's something to be said for just getting the win and getting out, right? And there's something to be said for like I guess saving face if you're DePaul. And I haven't been super impressed with Kim English, and they're hurt, I think, too. They've been down guys all season, but we just have this closer. They've been losing to everyone. They're dropping to Marquette by 30. They're dropping to Georgetown by 20. They're dropping to Xavier by 10. Dropping to Creighton by 11. Like that sounds a little like DePaul. Like I think this game to expect Providence to go in there and beat a team by double digits as though it's no challenge to them I think is ignorant of the style in both these teams play. Providence very, very likely going to be that team where their rim inefficiency that they have and their high frequency of 3-point shooting means this thing's going to be like who can hit more of those threes. And I don't really think that you want to be on the side of Providence who sees the 38th most off the dribble threes and defends them so bad that they're outside the top 340 and catch and shoot defense on shot quality. It's just not pretty. Opponents expected to shoot 35% from deep against them in the conference. DePaul, I mean, again, they were expected to lose the game against DePaul last time. They just got a little lucky. DePaul was expected to score 6 more points on threes, 6 more points on mid-range, and 6 more points at the rim.
That was overtime too.
Yeah, it was. And what? I think DePaul, yeah, I mean, crazy game. So Providence scored 12, Providence and DePaul scored 5, expected to score 8. It just wasn't great. I'm Team Blue Demons here. I think this is exactly where for Providence, this is you just got to win this game type of thing. You can't lose to DePaul to finish the season, especially on your home court. They're going to challenge them. We've kind of seen this in the Big East. Seton has given run to almost everyone. And this is, again, we're recording before tonight's game against Creighton. 10-point spread. I don't know what's going to happen. I do kind of expect it to hold true, though. But I think the bottom of the Big East, especially when the foot is off the gas a little bit and it really becomes about like, all right, let's win this game, get the dub at home. And DePaul gets to sort of be this road spoiler. Senior night starts to come into everything, how people play on those nights, families in attendance. There are people who handicap that stuff really well. So I do think there is probably something there, something to consider. I love an underdog, a slept on team like this. And hey, my alma mater is playing on Friday in the D3 tournament at large bid out of the NESCAC. Shout out to Hamilton College.
Oh,
they'll be playing out in I forget where, in Montclair, New Jersey on Friday afternoon. I've yet to decide if I'm going to make the trip out, but an at-large bid for my alma mater, and it's I can say that finally.
all right. We're gonna end the show on that note. Just kidding. I do think there's a little bit of an edge to DePaul. Yeah. And you look at just really quickly, Layden Blocker has come along for DePaul too. Double figures in 4 of his last 5 games, 23 against Butler. Granted, that was at home, but there is progression. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, even though they've only won 2 Big East games. Not much to play for. If you're Providence, you're pretty much locked in, or you are locked into that first day of the Big East tournament. So intuition-wise, I'm with you. Maybe the spread is a little bit too big. But big conference tournament handicap here coming up with Missouri Valley, otherwise known as Arch Madness, in St. Louis. Justin, this is my favorite conference tournament in the history of conference tournaments. I live for the Enterprise Center, even though I've never been. I love Arch Madness.
Go. Why are you going?
Well, listen, work. I don't want to get sick. Dude, I've gotten sick during March Madness, and it sucks.
That's I precipitate the sickness that'll come from round 1 in Vegas.
You're getting sick. If you're going to Vegas for the tournament, you're going to be working sick, man, the rest of the way. So good luck.
It's tough.
It's tough. But going through the odds here, which you can find my article over at thelines.com, Drake, Ben McCollum's Drake Bulldogs in his first season, plus 115 to win the Mo Valley tournament. Bradley right behind them, best price at DK as of this recording, plus 340. Northern Iowa, plus 500 at BetMGM, followed by Belmont, Illinois State, Murray State, UIC, SIU, and the list goes on here. First off, handicap for me, Justin, why I don't like Drake. Market-wise, and I know shot quality favors Drake, but to me, Bulldogs are already in the tournament, and that doesn't mean that they're going to let down, per se, in the quarterfinal, semifinal, or potentially even the title game. But you look at Quadrant 1 wins, their lone one is looking pretty good right now. They've beat Vanderbilt, who has outplayed a lot of teams so far over the last couple weeks in SEC play. You cashed in with the Vanderbilt doors last week against Texas A&M, actually, and talked to a couple very sharp bracketologists who you referenced earlier or alluded to. Rocco Miller, DJ Bauer, both of them have won Bracket Matrix or finished top 5 at the very least over the last few seasons. They both believe Drake is in at this point. So,
correct.
Motivationally speaking, where are we at? You get a couple weeks off. You get more time to prep. McCollum has been a mastermind at X's and O's down the stretch for Drake. We've seen that in overtime wins. I believe Drake has around five of those, actually, this season. So McCollum
no losses either, if I'm correct. I'm not looking.
I'm
not looking, but I believe no losses either.
Yeah, right. 5-0 in overtime. So,
correct.
Yeah, he's been dynamite when Drake gets an extra session. And we saw that over the weekend against Missouri State in their regular season finale. Now, the long shot, quote-unquote long shot, maybe top 4 seed, more so to be exact, that I do really like, is Northern Iowa. I took the Panthers at plus 500 on Monday. I grabbed that. It's still available at BetMGM. We'll see how long Bet365 keeps it up, but a few reasons why. So you're on the opposite side of the bracket from Drake. You potentially get Bradley in the semifinal. I think UNI has maybe not a cakewalk, but a very reasonable path to get to the semifinal, to say the least, playing the winner of the Valpo UIC game, who've two teams that they've handled very well in the regular season. UNI also playing very well into the conference tournament, which to me matters when you're taking an outright shot on a team, especially a team that maybe isn't a long shot in that 100, 150 to, so even money to 500 or 5-1, I should say. You want to try to take a team that has the intangibles down going into the conference tournament. And UNI plays at a very slow pace, so you have to be efficient offensively to do that. They play through their low post. You're not talking about a team that is high variance on a possession-by-possession basis, shooting a lot of threes. They play through their bigs, Titan Anderson and Jacob Hudson, 90th percentile on a points per possession basis per synergy on their post-up touches. So they're efficient in a slower paced atmosphere when they kind of control the tempo. They do that by controlling the glass. Elite on the defensive glass when you look at percentile across Division I. And also injury-wise, UNI is getting healthier, which is pretty underlooked going into this tournament. Right. Leon Bond, who's a Virginia transfer, averaged 10.4 points per game, 4.8 rebounds per contest. Started 21 games before he had that partial tear in his patella tendon. He only played about 7 minutes entering the Bradley game on Sunday, so we'll see what his minutes load is looking like in the MVC tournament. But getting him back is definitely an added bonus depth-wise for this team. You're healthier. I don't know if he's going to play more than 15 minutes a game, but it still theoretically helps. UNI hasn't been to an NCAA tournament since 2016. I think this is the field for Ben Jacobson to get this team there. Also, Bradley, if we look at the sandwiched team between Drake and UNI, reason why I'm not super high on the Braves, and I don't think shot quality is either. They're the luckiest team when you look at record quality per KenPom A, but also when you look at their perimeter defense, they've outperformed expectations this season, allowing a 32.6% clip in league play, and they've allowed the fourth highest open three-point attempt rate. So when does kind of water meet its level there? So that's kind of my condensed version of my handicap of why I really like UNI here at plus 500.
This thing on? No.
Hey, you had your TED Talk.
No, I love it. I love it. And I'm fully with you. I love it. I'm ready to echo in chorus, Eli. Drake is really good, and you're correct to avoid their side of the bracket. I would not play on their side of the bracket. I just would not. I also wouldn't play Bradley. So off the bat, like you said, one of the luckiest teams in the country, perfectly set up to fail. And I was like, okay, maybe we're betting on the luck to continue. Maybe we think they're an intangibles type team, a la St. John's, who a la, Houston, not that they're at nearly as much intangibles as St. John's, but a la Texas A&M, who does it even though the analytics don't understand why they do it. I don't like those profiles, which scares the crap out of me as someone who has an Averic St. John's jacket in the closet. But yeah, so let's follow that thread for 1 second, because we're right there in my opinion. We don't want the entire top half of the bracket. So don't bet on Belmont. Don't bet on SIU. I like Illinois State a little bit. If you really want to take someone there, you take Illinois State, and then you bet on Drake against your Illinois State if they win on the 6th and the 7th and they get Drake. That's what you do on that side of the bracket. And then on the south side of the bracket, you avoid Bradley, you fade Bradley. And then I think the one little headbutt between you and me is I think you also don't touch UNI for that price. It's just, I think it's gone. I think the value is because I think the value is in UIC to beat UNI and then beat Bradley. I don't think I like UNI. I do. I don't like the price on either Bradley or Northern Iowa because of like this assumption, I guess, that one of them is going to essentially go in and they're both going to have no problem against the 6 and the 7. I really like UIC. I really like Murray. I do not think either of those teams is going to lose. I think one of those teams gets into the semi. I think you're going to carry one of the 6 or the 7 into the semifinal, and you want the ticket on them. So I'm going to take the 22-1 on Murray and the 29-1 on Illinois, Chicago, and I'm going to hope that I'm taking one of them into the semi, and I'm feeling great about it. And I think that's the best strategy and then maybe like half that on Illinois State as well. I don't like the teams with buys here. I think the buys get overvalued in these tournaments. And especially if you have an edge on like Murray to beat Evansville, UIC to beat Valpo, then you should be taking them here as an advantage play on that second round.
My concern, and it's not even like a trend. I mean, it's just a fact. And that isn't to say, by the way, Justin, that when you're taking a long shot, if you got Illinois State, if you got any of those long shots in UIC, Murray State, you would hedge in the title game, correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I think you got to hedge in the semis. If you win
Right.
2 games out of 4 to get there, that's what you're. I mean, at long shot odds, that's what you're okay playing with. It's not great, but you're not getting offered odds to win 2 games. You could very easily roll over, but you have to start calculating the prices on that. I would. I mean, you could, right? I mean, I would assume that what we have percentages out for this. We have for what game is this?
Torvik is right there, by the way. I just want to say that
Yeah, please.
Torvik is right there on UNI. It's like plus 600.
Hmm.
I think that's a really good number for a team that has a ton of cohesion. You look at
I
Kempom,
get it.
80th in minutes continuity. They control the pace, 64th in height. You have the size to do it, and they've done it all year. You don't really need depth to win 3 games in a row, 218th in bench minutes. I only care about those metrics if you're talking about a team to win 4 in 4 days, which, by the way, Illinois State has depth despite the fact that they haven't won a first-round game under Pedon. So depending on how you want to look at that. My only caveat with taking a long shot in this conference that I want to get to is no team since 97, since the tournament expanded to 4 days, has ever won 4 straight games. So I'm with you. Your
Yeah.
thought process of you hedge in the semifinal if you're taking a long shot and it gets there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Again, I'm taking a 20 to 1 plus in hopes that that happens. You can again, Illinois, Chicago. You may want to break it down. You may want to roll over the money lines a little. But the problem is that when you're favored in that first round, it's really tough to do that. Because like, why do I want to put that like down like that when I can just take this and maybe I pay. Maybe my EV isn't as great, but in terms, and we have to calculate it. You just have to calculate what it is. Then you have to also try to figure out what the lines are going to be. You have to project forward. Try to figure out where they're going to close.
Which is really different. Right.
It's
You're either going to get spot on the open or close to me when you do those
I mean,
projections.
yeah, exactly. I don't want to deal with that at some
Yeah.
level. And the other component to EV calculations and bankroll optimizations and the balance between them that folks don't discuss is the application of time, right? If it takes me an extra hour to properly figure out the rollover and that might not even be a fruitful calculation or a fruitful methodology, I can eat the 3% potential expected EV or ROI loss and just play against the market I think I can beat and try to beat it rather than and use the extra hour to maybe go place bets in markets I know I can beat, so I give myself a leveraged shot.
Yeah. I hear you.
I don't know. I unfortunately live too much of my life by the Derek Jeter mowing his lawn.
Oh my
Conundrum.
God.
I know. That's how we're gonna finish the podcast.
I wanted to ask you, well,
Sure.
two
Well, do
things.
you really want to ask me things?
That's a good
Oh,
question.
shit.
I did the money line rollover calculation for UNI, and again, it depends on what kind of price you think. But let's just say you get Bradley in the semifinal, you get Drake in the title game. I do think you're getting more value on the plus 500 than you would on a rollover strategy. So just
Well, also when they win, people get excited about them, and the lines go against you, and you can lose money to momentum. So
yeah,
that's another
yeah.
thing, especially on a like if team absolutely dominates, right? All
Market
of a
is hard to
sudden,
dictate.
right. All of a sudden, Missouri State beats Drake. Like, what the heck are you? You're not going to get your rollover precipitated value anymore, are you? Like
Yeah.
some teams, you have to take then because if they're going to do the crazy thing early, you sure as hell are not getting the same value out of the market after they do it. So there's a lot to consider. Welcome to
Right?
betting.
Yeah. No, 100%, man. Great takes there. So, want to wrap things up with a bet potentially in the MVC tournament. First round, number 7 Murray State against number 10 Evansville, 7 p.m. Eastern time tip-off. Believe this one going to be on ESPN Plus. The winner would face Bradley in the quarterfinals. With totals in general in this tournament, Justin and I were talking about this before the podcast, and the numbers show it pretty clearly. Over the last 10 seasons, a total of 131.5 or higher in the Missouri Valley Conference tournament at the Enterprise Center in St. Louis, where it's been for God knows how long. 39-21 to the under, a 65% hit rate over the last 10 seasons. this isn't a basketball arena. It's a hockey arena. It's built for that. The shooting backdrops are pretty crazy. And also, you're just talking about a different venue than your typical basketball gym. If you don't want to get crazy and say, well, every neutral court venue isn't necessarily built for basketball. I mean, look at neutral court games at the Garden or whatever. It's different than when you're talking about a true hockey arena per se. KenPom projects Murray State as a 6-point favorite in this game. Total of 132. First game between these two teams earlier in the season went under. Second one went over. Both teams ranked bottom 115 across Division I in adjusted tempo. You also have two top 5 defenses, according to adjusted defensive efficiency per KenPom and Torvik in the conference, playing one another in the conference this season, in the Valley, that is. Murray State, top 4 in rebounding rate in league play, third highest offensive rebounding rate. So if the shooting percentage isn't there, but you're generating second chance shots, also kind of plays to the under, with Ferguson and Ellington being very, very good generating those second chance opportunities on the glass. Slower pace game. The shooting doesn't hold up, and the numbers correlate with the expectation and the projections. If we get around under 132, I think this is a pretty good way to start off your Arch Madness handicapping.
I don't disagree. We're gonna probably project it around, yeah,
130?
yeah, right there. We have 133.
Okay.
When you
So right
go
there with
to the
KenPom.
neutral, yeah. At a home site, we would expect probably 136, maybe 137. But yeah, it's tough. This is a tough one, and I think you probably want. I like Murray to go under a little bit more here. Just I don't know, but this is so tough because they have the rim attacking inefficiency, but they also have like the bad defense against the threes. So I just get a little bit worried about Evansville getting like keeping this one close, maybe a few extra points. Expecting Murray State to win, right? I do expect them to win. Um, but yeah, I'm not really far out from KenPom here with the 6 point line. 69-63 type game. Sure, I expect this thing to probably be like 67-64. So right there, I like Murray State on the money line, but again, I think these late game antics it's just going to be tough. These 2 possession games, I tend to
With
believe.
totals, yeah.
Right, and I also think underdogs. I think you want 2 game underdogs. You take those 6 points a lot. I would be like, hypothesis lay down right now from in every postseason game that has a spread of 6 plus. I think you're profitable taking the points. I would assume you make money over 52.5% at 6 plus through March from in every postseason game. I would
Here's the
I'm gonna look back and check. We have the technology,
well,
but we'll see.
with this tournament, it's crazy that you said that. So only 2 of the 42 underdogs since 2014 of 6.5 points or more have won outright, and those dogs are 13 and 29 ATS. If you're gonna bet a dog,
I believe it for certain ones, and I don't believe it for like the D1 sphere at large. And I also think
yeah,
that past data is about as worthless as possible right now in the larger scope of things because of the way things have shifted and the parity that exists within the conferences now that we've never seen before. Like, you want to talk about expecting college basketball in the March Madness tournament to be a free for all. I think conference tournaments this year, people don't understand how tight these conferences are, how much better the middle of most conferences are, how much better college basketball as a whole is. Like, you go, if you're a KenPom member and you want to sort of see it, the D1 Universe tool is really interesting. And what you want to do is you just want to look at past years at the bottom. So like the number of teams below 0 last year, like it's just like the number of teams above like 10 and above 15.
yeah,
It's
there's more
just
parity.
so drastic, and it's just like
Yeah,
the grouping. It's so much smaller. Like, I think 353 is at -20 this year, and 31 is at plus 20, so that's 320 teams within 20. Last year, we had, yeah, it was almost the same, but like there were still the clustering. I think also in terms of the defense wasn't as like tight. Like we can see now, it's like it's a slimmer graph this year. It's literally everyone's on top of one another. So it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. So I like long shots. Find those long shots. Someone's going to do the unthinkable. Someone's going to run 4 days in 4 games. Someone's going to run 5 games in 5 days in the Sun Belt. It's going to happen. I don't know if it's this year. I don't know if it's next year. But basketball is getting better. It's just crazy things are going to happen. I can't wait. Take long shots.
Yeah, listen, if you like a long shot in this conference and the antithesis of that trend, to me, I think the parity level in this conference is still pretty stark when you look at the top 4 or top 3 for that matter between Drake, if Drake brings it every game, Drake, Bradley, and UNI versus the bottom. So I think that's why my thought process kind of correlates with that notion holding true again this year. But I get it. If you don't think so and you want to take a dog, take a long shot, I think it's totally warranted. But
crazy thing is they're all the Missouri Valley Conference, Drake, Bradley, Belmont, Illinois State are all essentially on the offensive adjusted efficiency line of about 113. It's just steps up in defense, right? And so I think like if the offenses kind of win out in the neutral and the defenses don't hold, I do think you really do have 5 contenders here, and you want to look into Belmont, Illinois. I don't know.
But the one thing I want to say with that is, before we get out of here, if you're going with the notion that defenses, well, on a neutral court, wouldn't you be more inclined to say that defenses, if the shot variance or negative variance, that being said, comes to fruition, then you would be more inclined to say the defense will hold?
I suppose. My problem is that like this is not a defensive conference. I mean, the best defensive team is Bradley at an effective field goal percentage that ranks 65th, and like Belmont, Illinois State are outside the top 300. This is not exactly the conference of defense in every metric. So I don't know. It's going to be a fascinating one. So we'll see how it goes. Drake probably going to win on the fact that they just force those turnovers, and they're going to win on the shot on the possession. So someone's going to have like the perfect shooting game or not turn it over against them, because they just are almost a more sound basketball team than everyone. So again, that's why I like the long shot, because I think when you have a team like Drake that can command a plus 110, a minus 110, you probably are more likely to see something crazy happen at like the plus 2,200 than you are to see the 500 to 1. And I know that doesn't make any sense, because why would it be priced that way? But like, not more likely, but more likely to get your value out of it.
Yeah,
that's all.
And hedge if you do end up getting that.
Get your value out of it. Same deal. There's more opportunity. Like you don't have as much time for UNI to build up wins for you to get out on. Like you take UNI, you're riding.
You're making the bet to win.
Right. You're taking UNI to win. You're taking Belmont to win. You're really not. You need multiple rounds to be hedging. So I don't know. Welcome. Features are fun though. I think I'm falling more and more in love with features. I think they might be more beatable than spreads and totals.
Definitely an interesting conversation for another day when we look at those two markets in particular.
On my next TED Talk.
Yeah. Sign up at the link below. But if you do want to sign up for free contests to win free money, it's as simple as that. Head over to play.thelines.com. We have a daily college basketball contest. It's free, and you have a chance to win $25 in Amazon gift cards every single day. Also, check out our best bets. It's free. They're free. And our Discord channel. The link is over at thelines.com in the top right-hand corner. So for Justin and for myself, Eli Hershkovich, thanks for watching and listening to this edition of Beat the Closing Number. So long, everybody, and good luck with your college basketball picks.